Hello and welcome to an Everyday Canines video. In this episode we're talking about early takeoff syndrome, which is often abbreviated to ETO. What is early takeoff syndrome? It affects quite a number of dogs, and what it means is that the dog can't judge correctly where to take off to successfully negotiate a jump. So the correct spot for a dog to take off to take a jump would be just before it, so that they can jump over it in a lovely arch. That's the best way for them to jump over it. They want to be coming over it from here, and as they reach the midpoint, where they're over the pole, they want to be almost flat in extension, and then they want to land about here. So when we're doing jump grids, one of the points of jump grids is to teach our dogs that you take off nice and neatly near to the jump and you land before it. When a dog suffers from early takeoff syndrome, the name is descriptive. It means they take off too early. It means they take off, say, from somewhere like here. What this effectively means is that dog is having to really extend to get to the jump. Very often they'll have taken off and they'll already be flattening out, so at the peak of their jump before they reach the pole. And then they've got to try and get over the pole, and they probably land too close to it, or quite often in larger dogs it'll mean they take the pole. They simply can't help it because they just can't work out where the correct takeoff spot is. I've discussed this a little bit with Sparrow and Swift and demonstrated it before, and Sparrow does have early takeoff syndrome, and I've got some quite dramatic photographs of her showing her taking off far too soon and appropriately for a jump. Now, some people look at these dogs taking off early on photographs and they think like, wow, that dog's got loads of power because of the way it's taking off. It's not, and it's actually a case the dog is having to power over that jump because it doesn't know where to appropriately take off. What is the reason for that? Why can't the dog find the correct takeoff spot? Generally, and nearly in the majority of early takeoff syndrome cases, and there have been studies done on this, generally it is to do with vision. We're not talking about blindness here or anything as severe as that. We could be talking as something as simple as like me. They're short-sighted, they're long-sighted. You know, I wear glasses because I have astigmatism, so I can't, if I have my glasses off, everything goes fuzzy and I would have real trouble telling where this jump pole is. Now, I could probably work it out and judge it, but my depth perception is not the greatest with my glasses off, hence why I have glasses. The same applies to dogs with early takeoff syndrome. Something's going on with their vision. They just haven't got, they can't see the jump properly, or they can't work out the distance to it properly. So what happens is sometimes they get lucky and they go, nailed it, found the right spot and take off, and sometimes they don't. They're inconsistent because they just can't figure out where the jump is. In contrast, a dog with normal vision will consistently take off from the correct spot because they can consistently judge where a jump is. Now, early takeoff syndrome is typically noticed on jumps, hence the name, because that's the most obvious place it affects. But it also can be noticed on things like contacts, especially now we're moving into a lot of running contacts. Dogs with ETO can really struggle with finding the correct spot to leave the contact, so that you can never get a consistent running contact where they're always going down it properly because they can't work that out. It might also affect finding tunnel entries if they're not obvious. It can also affect finding the correct entry on weave poles, or even completing a full set of 10 weave poles. All these things coming together can obviously impair the way a dog runs around a course, and it can be seen as a training problem, and or the dog just doesn't get it. It is actually a physical thing. It's a physical problem with the vision. Generally, there are a few other possibilities, but generally it's vision, which means the dog is trying its best and it just can't help the fact that sometimes it gets it wrong. Now, very often with young dogs that are just learning agility, you will notice early takeoff syndrome. This is because the dogs are new to jumping and they haven't learnt the correct place to take off. It's not actually a long-term problem. With dogs, it's rather like horses. People assume a dog can jump a pole. Dogs actually need to be shown how to jump and take off correctly to successfully take the jump, which means doing jump grids and things like that. Now, most young dogs, if they have an issue with early takeoff syndrome, with using jump grids, etc., and very often, if there's nothing particularly wrong with their vision, just naturally, they will learn how to jump correctly on their own. So in a young dog that's just starting to learn, it's not a huge worry unless you do jump grids, etc. Those jump grids don't help the dog to learn the takeoff position. It's when you have a dog, an adult dog, that never can change their ability to take off correctly, that's when you know there's probably an issue. Early takeoff syndrome is not the end of the world for an agility career, but you do need to know how to handle it, what to expect with it, and you do have to on occasion be accepting that the dog may have issues jumping that can, in the most severe cases, affect its ability to compete at high levels. So I hope this introduction to early takeoff syndrome has made sense. We're going to be doing more videos on the subject. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel to keep track of when our videos come out. They're coming out on a regular basis. And you can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And I hope to see you all again very, very soon.